Alright, welcome to Lesson 2 of Mission 1. It's titled Many Regions, Many Cultures. I think you'll be happy to know that this is an incredibly short lesson, so one of the shorter ones that we'll probably run into. What we're going to discuss is the fact that the world can be divided into regions according to culture. We've already talked about that a little bit. Our essential question is how is the world divided into these regions by culture? So let's first discuss what a culture region is. A culture region is simply defined as a geographical area in which people share a common thread. That thread is a culture trait. Now, usually these culture regions, the people within them share many, if not all, of these culture traits. For instance, the U.S. is predominantly Christian religion. Well, Latin America is as well. Parts of Africa is also predominantly Christian. But just because we share this one culture trait does not mean that we're in the same culture region. A lot of things have to line up to be considered a culture region. Some of these traits, these individual culture traits, are beliefs, superstitions, history, a common history, language that is spoken, religion, as we just discussed, also access to technology, economic conditions, what type of work is available in these regions. A lot of the food will have similar characteristics across the entire region, clothing as well, and finally, the way they provide shelter for themselves and their families. Alright. The world has 7 distinct culture regions. U.S. and Canada is one. Latin America is another. Latin America actually includes Mexico and Central American countries, as well as South America. Europe, all the way across to the former Soviet Union. That's Russia and all the small states that used to be a part of the Soviet Union. What's interesting is Europe's on the European continent, and although it's connected by land, Russia is actually on the Asian continent. So Europe and the former Soviet Union actually spans 2 continents. They share a culture region. North Africa and what they're calling Southwest Asia. Now, to kind of clear up any confusion for you, what the book is calling Southwest Asia, we hear in the news and commonly referred to as the Middle East. So North Africa and the Middle Eastern countries share a culture region. Now Africa, south of the Sahara Desert, that's actually most of the continent of Africa, is a culture region that is separate from Northern Africa. South Asia, that's India and all the small Asian states that surround it. And then you have East Asia, which is China. And for our purposes, they lump in Australia and the Pacific Islands. Alright. Another thing that we need to kind of touch on is culture regions are not static. That means they do not stay the same throughout time. They change. They borrow traits from one another. This method of acquiring other culture region traits is referred to as interdependence. And what I mean by that is they depend on each other economically. I gave the example in class of we depend on oil from Middle Eastern nations, and in turn they really kind of depend on our money to function economically. So we have a very much so an interdependence. We buy a lot of Chinese-made products. So it can be said that China depends on the influx of cash from the United States, yet we also depend on their cheaper goods. So there's a level of interdependence there. That interdependence has opened the door to greater cooperation between the two, though it's not always a wonderful relationship. There is more interdependence now than there ever has been before. So events in one culture region may affect the other culture region. For instance, if there's a war going on in the Middle East, even if we're not involved, even if the U.S. isn't involved, you can probably expect the price of gasoline to rise under the threat that the supply of gasoline, or the supply of crude oil, rather, might be affected due to that conflict. And that's why you see that kind of those kind of prices at the pump, is because when there's threat of conflict in the Middle East, price of barrel of oil goes up, oil turned into gas, and so there you have it. So one thing that has greatly increased greatly increased interdependence, rather, is technology and communication. You can, as I mentioned in the previous lesson, Facebook someone on the other side of the globe instantly. We have never had that in our entire existence as a species. And we can only expect technology to grow by leaps and bounds. So, in turn, we probably can expect greater interdependence. But to sum it all up, this slide, culture regions change and they evolve over time because they borrow culture traits from one another as they interact. And guess what? That's the end. That's painless, right? I hope you guys do the quiz at the bottom, and you will see those questions again on the chapter quiz. Thanks for watching.